So, Stephen A. Smith right here. And Stephen A. has been talking about the WNBA. And this is a man who has not watched a WNBA game, I'm not sure, ever. And, like, I mean that. I'll say that confidently. Like, I would be very, very confident that Shannon Sharpe watches the games. I would be shocked if Stephen A. Smith watches these games. And being dead serious, I would, if you ask Stephen A. Smith to name one person on the floor, not named Collier, Breanna Stewart, or Sabrina Ionescu, I'm convinced he would not actually be able to name anyone. Because it's very, very clear. And he was even asked, they were like, you promise you go to the game? And he goes, I tried to go to the game. They wouldn't give me my seats. So I didn't go to the game. And it's like, dude, you're Stephen A. Smith. Just pay for a courtside seat. Like if you really want to go to a game, you're making $20 million a year. You can pay the $2.5 grand for a courtside seat for a game. Come on now. He just didn't want to be at the game. But this is what he said about the game. I'm going to be playing this on 1.5 times speed right here.
Well, cry me a river. Let me tell y'all something right now, okay?
There you go.
It's
Okay.
not wrong. That was not. You listen up, Shake. You listen up to me right now, okay? She was absolutely right. That was not a foul. LeBron James was absolutely right. That was not a foul. I'm not disputing the veracity of her statement. I'm simply saying I don't give a damn. We don't want to hear this again. This is not the first time that Coach Reeve has done this. I'm speaking to Janae Ogumake, her sister, in 2016. Shot clock violation. Excuse.
Like, they got robbed in 2016 as well. Like, what are we talking about? With a minute, they lost the finals by 1 point, but this one isn't even as egregious as this. With a minute to go, Neko Wumake hit a shot to put them up. Or to bring them back into it. Either way, it was a 1 point game. And, like, when the shot clock went, the ball was still in her hand. She was about a half a second after the shot clock. Like, how it wasn't reviewed and called, I don't know. You'd be pissed at that. But they literally had the championship. They had the ball. With 3 seconds to go, they had the ball up 2. They had it up 2. Like, saying nobody wants to hear this, I'm sorry. Just the WNBA obviously don't want to hear this because, you know, the WNBA's big post being like, the WNBA title's where it belongs in New York. It's in New York where it belongs. And, obviously the commissioner wearing a dress with New York on it doesn't help. But it's like, just so many just dumb things. So many really dumb things Stephen A. Smith will say. And the worst part is that Chiney Nwumike, Stephen A. Smith, and Shannon Sharpe every one of them was like, well, it was a terrible call and they were robbed. And then they proceed to go on and say, you know what, actually they weren't robbed.
Hall of Famer, you know what hostile environments look like. You know that you're going up against the Army. By the way, the WNBA officiating, it's been an issue for years. There have been numerous complaints from a bevy of individuals about the quality of the officiating.
Like, it's not even quality of officiating. Going to the monitor and getting a call wrong is not the quality of officiating. Like, these referees are more than qualified to see that Breanna Stewart did the cha-cha slide going into a layup. Her pull-up. Like, they are more than qualified to see Stewie doing the cha-cha slide.
In the WNBA, it didn't stop you from having one of the best records in the sport. It didn't stop you from getting to the WNBA finals. So why all of a sudden did it cost you a championship? You got to understand what the...
You literally just said the refs didn't stop you from getting to the final, so why did it cost you a championship? Because with 3 seconds to go, you had the ball in your hands. You had the ball in your hands with 3 seconds to go. I repeat, they had the ball in their hands up to with 3 seconds to go. The best case scenario in that situation, or the worst case scenario in that situation is there's a foul and they miss both free throws, and then New York, who didn't even have, I don't even think they had their reset, managed to go to full length of the court and win the game. If New York did that, fair play, they would have deserved to win. But they were robbed. Like, you're using every excuse under the book. And, like, this is the thing where it's like, this is the shit that Sacramento Kings had to put up with in 2002. This is like saying, you know what, the Sacramento Kings, they just didn't hit enough shots. I'm sorry, like, you can win a rigged game. I mean that. We saw it yesterday. The Lynx nearly won a rigged game. But the problem is that the game was rigged. So if it's a 2-point game. So yeah.
Obstacles are in every particular situation, and champions know how to answer the call.
Champions know how to answer the call. I'm sorry, they did. And like, this is like when I'm like, people aren't watching the game. People actually aren't watching the game. Champions answer the call. You know what champions do? They get into great defensive position like Alana Smith did. Get in the way of Breanna Stewart and don't allow Breanna Stewart in a perfectly legal way of getting an easy shot off. The champions did answer the call. Every single bad refereeing call that went against them for the whole game. A free throw count up to that point of 21-6. The fact is that the real champions answered the call. Every time the Liberty went up, Fee would make a cut to the basket. Fee Collier answered the call. She hooped. The problem is that they answered every call, but like when they realized, you know what, there's nothing we can do. Their head wasn't in it in overtime. There's not one team. There's not one team in history that can get over a call like that in the final game of a finals. There's just not. Like, people still talk about how the Ray Allen shot like took it all out of the Spurs. They had an entire game to come back, and in overtime. Everyone knew the Spurs were never winning that overtime after Ray Allen shot. Like, imagine that though. Imagine, unlike thinking you have it won. Imagine how tough that was for the Spurs. But then when you add in, you actually had the game won. You had the ball, and the referees screwed you? No, of course they were never going to win.
The Minnesota Lynx is a damn good team. Collier is big time. 18 shots in the paint and not one free throw attempt from it. Yeah. Very egregious. I get all of that. But far from surprising, if you notice the history of bad officiating, and you combine that with the fact that you're in a hostile environment, the Barclays Center, erupted. I ain't seen it like that since Kevin.
Like that is, like, I actually hate this. I hate this because he literally just goes, the referees are bad. And like, it was a hostile environment, so you have to expect the referees to screw you. Like, you have to expect. You know what? You're the away team. You can't win. You have no right to win this game. That's basically what he said. And he was like, you know what? Doesn't matter what you do on the floor. You have no right to win this game. You have no right to win this game. You cannot expect it to be a fair game. And that's as embarrassing as anything. The fact that he's probably right, that the Lynx should not have expected this to be a fair game, because the commissioner wanted New York to win. The league wanted New York to win. The referees wanted New York to win. It should not have been expected to be a fair game. And that is the saddest part of it all, is that Stephen A. Smith is actually right. It wasn't a fair game. It wasn't a fair game from start to finish. And I think sports fans expecting sports not to be rigged is, like, he basically admits it. He admitted it wasn't a fair game. Whether you want to use the words rigged or not, that's fine. Whether you want to use the words rigged or not. And even Stephen A. Smith, who's made sure as hell to say basically, no, it wasn't rigged. He is literally, not using those words, but in a roundabout way, said this game was not fair. It was never going to be fair. And it's the Lynx' fault for expecting the game to be fair. That's what I've gotten out of what Stephen A. Smith has said. The worst part is, he's right. He's right. The Lynx were naive to expect the game to be called fairly. They were naive to expect this game to be fair for them. And that's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate in sports. Maybe he's right. And maybe it is naive to expect sports not to be rigged. Maybe, like, as somebody, maybe there is, like, some naivety in my part expecting sports to be sports. And expecting the better team to win most games. But you're right. Like, I think Stephen A. Smith is on the money. Like, if New York are playing, we should expect it as well as a Miami Heat fan if we're playing the New York Knicks and it goes to a Game 7 and it's in New York, get Eastern Conference Finals. It's not going to happen. Let's just say hypothetical. And Jalen Brunson dribbles in, does the cha-cha slide, kicks the ball to Mikal Bridges, who hitches 17 times into a jump shot, bricks it, and then jumps on the ground. Even if no one's near them, it's 3 shots, and they'll win the game. Like, we have to expect that. And he's right. You cannot expect the game not to be rigged.